I'll tell you a story that happened to me, and it's one I still don't fully understand. I live in an apartment building on the 6th floor with windows facing the courtyard. Last fall, while I was home on vacation, I developed a habit of drinking tea and watching the sun set behind the buildings. It was a simple routine, but it led me to witness something strange. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the houses and no longer blinded my eyes, I noticed a figure with a white, oval face in one of the windows of the building across the courtyard. It was on the 4th floor, looking out toward the courtyard. The next day, at the same time, while sipping my tea, I looked for the figure again, and there it was. I observed it closely and came to the conclusion that it was probably a child, based on the proportions and some other details. I thought perhaps the child was sick, watching other kids playing football in the yard. As the days passed, I realized that the light in that window never turned on. Not in the evening, not at night, not even in the morning. This detail struck me as unusual, and on the 3rd day, I found myself looking for the silhouette in the window again. It was there, unmoving, and I started to feel uneasy. Though I couldn't make out the figure's eyes from such a distance, there was something unsettling about where the eyes should have been, dark, empty gaps that sent a chill through me. But I told myself it was just a trick of the shadows in the twilight. On the 5th day, I borrowed binoculars from a neighbor to get a closer look. I pointed them at the figure, but I couldn't get a clear focus on its face. I could see the window frame and sill, but the figure itself appeared blurry, as if it was sitting a little way back from the window. That evening, however, I had the feeling that those dark, empty eyes were looking straight at me. I started pulling the curtains shut and even left the room to escape my own curiosity. I couldn't resist the urge to check each evening. Eventually, I went down to the courtyard, stood beneath the building, and tried to see inside the window from below. But from the street, I could only see a reflection of the darkening sky. I guessed which apartment it must be, number 16, and despite feeling foolish, I walked to the building entrance. I hesitated. Then, just as I was about to turn away, an elderly couple walked out, and I took that as a sign. Politely nodding to them, I slipped inside. I made my way up to the 4th floor, telling myself a little story to explain my presence if anyone answered the door. I reached apartment 16, took a deep breath, and pressed the bell, but heard nothing from inside. Disappointed, I tried the doorknob. To my surprise, the door was unlocked and swung open as if inviting me in. Though I consider myself brave, I felt an unusual excitement that I couldn't quite explain. As I stepped into the hallway, I realized there was no electricity. The light switch didn't work, and the doorbell didn't seem to either. Moving cautiously through the dim light, I reached the living room, which was brighter due to the uncovered windows. The room was empty, with nothing but walls, a dusty floor, and tattered wallpaper. I glanced back down the hallway. I knew the strange figure had to be in the back room. The door to the bedroom was shut, and as I turned the handle, it creaked. Bracing myself, I stepped inside. The bedroom was as empty as the rest of the apartment. Tattered walls, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and by the window, a small, old-fashioned child's desk with a thick layer of dust on it. But what froze me in place was the message written in the dust. I see you. The writing was fresh, undisturbed by any layer of dust. I felt a shiver run down my spine. The room was chillingly quiet, and a sense of dread crept over me. It was getting dark, and I noticed that the heating was on, but the room still felt strangely cold. A clear thought formed in my mind. I had to leave. Backing out of the room, I closed the door behind me and quickly made my way down the corridor, fighting the sensation that someone was watching me from behind. When I finally emerged into the entrance hall, I came face to face with an elderly woman from a neighboring apartment. She looked startled to see me, and I quickly explained that I had been looking at the apartment, considering it as a potential purchase. She didn't seem to believe me, but said that apartment 16 had been empty for years. Hurrying out of the building, I returned home. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. That night, I checked the window across the courtyard. The figure was gone. For the next week, I continued to look, but the window remained dark. It's been a year since that experience, and I've convinced myself it was all in my imagination. But just yesterday, I came home early, made myself a cup of tea, and looked out the window, as I used to. My eyes went to the same darkened window across the way. Nothing has changed there. Everything is silent. I sit here now, wondering, should I warn the new residents? Would they even believe me?